As each person is unique, even the Masters are unique. Each one comes with a specific mission, and in order to carry out the mission, he has a specific series of talents and abilities that the Masters of the Order of the Viragi have put him through. He has talents along a certain line, and they're not duplicates of anyone else any more than you are a duplicate of anyone else, because soul is a unique entity. That means there is only one of a kind. If you take soul in all its experiences and all the many lifetimes it spent on earth, all the lifetimes it spent on the astral or causal or mental plane or the etheric plane or anywhere, maybe there is a time at the fifth initiation that some initiates know when they will go. And maybe there is a higher rule, as I mentioned at another time, that you come to the point where you're willing to let the Ek use you as a vehicle until there isn't anything more to give.
Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my Journey Faithful Compassion Hub. My name is Beatrice. Here I share reflections from my own spiritual journey, moments that invites deeper listening, compassion, and awareness of soul. Today's reflections come from a talk by Harold Clemp. I want to share how this message opens something within me. Before I continue, I want to gently share an invitation. There is an Eckankar seminar happening very soon in Soweto, Johannesburg, South Africa, from the 27th to 29th March 2026. It is free of charge and it's open to everyone, no matter your background, belief, or wherever you are on your spiritual journey or your level of understanding. It's simply a space to explore the light and sound of God, to reflect quietly, to ask questions, to experience the spiritual teachings, and maybe see what your own soul may discover. Now, I want to start by saying something very important. I don't know how each one of us hears this talk or how these words will land in your hearts. But as for me, I feel like this talk isn't just about Paul Twitchell. I feel it's about all of us, about our journey, about the soul, about moments that quietly shape us long before we realize it.
Well, I wanted to talk tonight about Paul Twitchell, the unique individual who brought out Eckankar in 1965. As I've mentioned before, the more I study his life and his writings, the more I come to respect him. A man given a mission, a most difficult mission, where he himself had little to gain from it because of his poisoning in Spain in September of 1970. And yet he continued to gather together and put out the writings of truth that had either been written already in the world or others that he wrote himself. And so I regard Paul as the great compiler. And this seems like a shocking statement because we like to have the feeling that everything, or every time he put his pen to paper or the typewriter key to the paper, that it was pure divine inspiration, that it flowed out in impeccable English, no comma out of place, all semicolons in line, question marks where they needed to be, and this was the great message from the God-man to the 20th century. Well, it didn't happen quite like that. One fact remains that Paul Twitchell was a spiritual traveler. He did have a spiritual power, and he was seen by people years before he finally began his mission in 1965. People had already seen him even while Rebazartars and the other Ekadepts were putting him through the spiritual training to become the Mahanta, the living Ekmaster. My wife was doing interviews with a number of people this afternoon, people who had known Paul. One gentleman related that in the dream state, he had met Paul some 14 years before the actual meeting in the physical body. And when he did meet Paul, I believe it was near a bookstore, probably in one of the large cities, but in the dream state, this man whom he didn't recognize came up to him and said, "Are you ready?" And, this man was a little puzzled because he thought this was probably the angel of death or somebody. And he wasn't really ready for that kind of invitation. So he said, "No, thanks." And then probably spent the next 14 years wondering why or what this man was about or what that strange dream meant. Well, then one day in the physical, 14 years later, he's out on the street, and the very same man walks up to him in the physical body, takes him by the arm, and asks him the very same question. "Are you ready?" And at about this time, I believe, the veil from the past, if it had been down, came snapping up like a window shade and flapped and flapped. This is an example of the kind of man that Paul Twitchell was. The spiritual power was working in him even then. Instances of this kind are related about the Eckmasters and about all the Eckmasters, where before they take the rod of Eck power and they're in training and are already high initiates in the secret teachings of Eck, people see them, have some kind of meeting with them that strikes them, and then years later, they come to the path of Eck and they'll pick up a book and look at a face and say, "Oh, I know that one for sure," because of something dramatic that happened in the past. Paul was a character. I don't know how to explain him exactly. I've looked and I sat here tonight on the notes as I was going through it. But I can tell you that Paul himself planned carefully. Whenever he wrote a book, the first thing he would do is write down numbers 1 to 12 underneath the title. And then he would begin filling in titles as they came to him. And he had a whole list, a whole bunch of these sheets numbered 1 to 12. And by the time he translated in 1971, he had some sheets that didn't have enough titles on them. Well, the question is, what do you do now? Because you can't match his writing, because as each person is unique, even the Eckmasters are unique. Each one comes with a specific mission, and in order to carry out the mission, he has a specific series of talents and abilities that the Eckmasters of the Order of the Viragi have put him through. He has talents along a certain line, and they're not duplicates of anyone else any more than you are a duplicate of anyone else, because soul is a unique entity. That means there is only one of a kind. If you take soul in all its experiences and all the many lifetimes it spent on earth, all the lifetimes it spent on the astral or causal or mental plane or the etheric plane or anywhere, and you put them all together and you look for another soul that probably had the same experiences of all the millions and billions that ever reincarnated in the lower worlds, you wouldn't find one. Each of you is one of a kind. I don't know if this is good or bad. Sometimes a wife will get so frustrated at her husband, she can't even put it into words. She says, you know. And she's probably not saying, "You are unique," At least in a spiritual sense. So Paul planned carefully. When he wrote, he made an outline. When he talked, he made an outline. He started with a title, and he had a series of talks made out for the seminar in Cincinnati, Ohio, where he translated that weekend. He had his talks prepared. And so you wonder, does a man like Paul really know the moment of his translation, or doesn't he? Maybe there is a time at the fifth initiation that some initiates know when they will go. And maybe there is a higher rule, as I mentioned at another time, that you come to the point where you're willing to let the Ek use you as a vehicle until there isn't anything more to give.
Listening to it, I felt a deep sense of connection, like there's a pattern to how our soul is prepared. Sometimes we meet teachers, ideas, or experiences years before we are ready for them. And sometimes we can only see the meaning in hindsight. One thing that really struck me is how Paul's work reminds us that spiritual growth is often invisible at first. It doesn't look miraculous or perfect. Sometimes it's simple preparation, learning, observing, practicing, and showing up for life even when we don't know why. It's a reminder that our inner work, our discipline, our choices, even the struggles we go through are all shaping us quietly, patiently, and step by step. I found myself thinking, how many times have I had experiences that didn't make sense at the moment, only to realize later they were leading to something important? Maybe it was a meeting, a book, a dream, a feeling, and only years later did the purpose become clear. That's what the talk reflected for me. That soul knows its path, even our mind does not. Another part of the talk that really touched me is the reminder that each soul is unique. No two journeys are the same. No one is meant to walk exactly in someone else's footprint. Even spiritual leaders and spiritual teachers, each one comes with specific mission, with specific experiences, with their own timing and abilities. And so do we. That made me reflect deeply on my own life and choices. It reminded me that comparing myself to others, or thinking I need to measure up spiritually or in any area of my life, is missing the point. I also notice how the talk reminds us that spiritual work is not only about inspiration and mystical experiences. Paul planned, prepared, structured, and disciplined himself. And that's a lesson for all of us. Our spiritual journey requires effort, intention, and responsibility. The mystical and practical walk hand in hand. It reminded me that we are not passive observers in our spiritual journey. We are participants. Every small effort, every moment of awareness, every act of kindness, and every practice of truth, all of these matters. I want to pause and ask, what moments in your life have been quietly shaping you? What experiences, people, or dreams have shaped you for the path you are on before you even realized it? How have you noticed your own soul working behind the scenes, guiding you gently, patiently, and uniquely? And if you think about your own journey, how do you see your uniqueness, the path that is yours alone? Are you honoring it, even it looks different from others, even it feels slow, messy, or imperfect at times? The last part of the talk really touched me. How Paul gave his life fully to his mission, and then it was time for him to move on. For me, this speaks to the rhythm of spiritual life. There are times to act, times to wait, and times to surrender completely. It reminds me that when we are fully present and committed to our path, we can trust the guidance of our soul, even when we don't see the whole picture. I found myself reflecting personally. How often do I hold back or try to control outcomes, instead of fully surrendering to what my soul is calling me to do? This is a reminder that giving fully with intention, love, and discipline is the essence of walking a spiritual path. And maybe this reflection can speak to you too. Where is your soul inviting you to give fully? Where is it asking you to trust timing and let go, even if you don't yet see the end? For me, this talk is a call to trust the unfolding of my soul, to honor my experiences, my questions, my challenges, and the guidance I receive in ways that may not always make sense at the moment. It's a reminder that the path of Eckankar, the practices of soul travel, the lessons from the masters are invitations, not obligations. Invitations to explore, to reflect, and to awaken. And perhaps that's what makes this journey so beautiful. It's personal, unique, and deeply alive in each of us. I hope this reflection touches you in some way and maybe even inspires you to pause and listen to your own soul. And if this reflection spoke to you, I invite you to share your thoughts below, and I would love to hear how this resonates with your journey. Thank you for joining me today. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And may your path continue to unfold with grace, love, and awareness. I love you all. Bye-bye.